Yesterday, I faced my first splice. I learned that tape was never enough, that connectors must match the gauge, and that every joint must be hidden safely inside a junction box. I survived, but barely. The foreman's words still rang in my ears. Tomorrow, you will face torque. If you fail, you go home. Morning came, and the workbench was set like an altar of judgment. 2 wires lay across it. 1 copper, bright and red with strength. 1 aluminum, pale and dull, like a blade left too long in the rain. Harris stood before us, his eyes sharp. Harris, copper is strong, but aluminum is treacherous. It oxidizes quickly. Oxidation builds resistance. Resistance builds heat, and heat will burn down everything you thought was safe. Tell me what must be applied to aluminum splices. The room was silent. Then I raised my voice. John, antioxidant compound. Harris nodded slowly. Harris, correct. Without it, aluminum becomes a slow fire starter. Remember, this aluminum looks harmless, but it hides a hunger for destruction. He spread a dark paste across the stripped end of the aluminum conductor. The class leaned in. Compound coated the surface, sealing it from air, like a protective charm against corrosion. Maria asked her question softly. Maria, why do we use pigtails, Harris? Harris, to reduce stress on terminal lugs and make replacements easier. Devices must not carry the weight of multiple splices. With pigtails, you protect the device and the system. Kevin, impatient, stepped forward. His pride burned hotter than caution. Kevin, I don't need paste. I don't need pigtails. Watch this. He stripped the wire roughly, jammed it into a nut, twisted hard, and smiled at us with false victory. A faint spark jumped, sizzling in the air. The class gasped. Harris's voice was sharp as a whip. Harris, loose connections lead to fire. Faster does not mean safer. The smell of scorched insulation lingered in the room. Kevin's grin faltered. Harris, answer me, why must connectors match the gauge of the conductor? John, because grip and current capacity depend on it. If the gauge is wrong, the connection loosens, heat builds, and fire follows. Harris, good. Now show me how it is truly done. My hands trembled as I reached for the aluminum wire. I stripped the insulation slowly, exactly half an inch. No more, no less. I coated the end with antioxidant compound, dark and thick. I twisted it firmly with another wire, capped it with a rated wire nut, slid a piece of heat shrink over the joint and sealed it. Harris tugged the splice. It held. His eyes glimmered, just for a second. Harris, excellent. Always test. If one wire slips, you have failed. Maria followed, making her own neat splice. She twisted carefully, capped, and sealed. Harris tugged. It held firm. Maria, what happens if we tighten screws too much on aluminum? Harris, over-tightening crushes the conductor. The strands weaken. The joint overheats. Torque is balanced tight, enough to secure, not enough to destroy. Tomorrow, you will face this trial. The foreman entered, boots echoing against the concrete. He scanned the workbench, eyes cold. Foreman, answer me, apprentice.
Why must we never mix copper and aluminum directly?
I spoke, voice steady.
John, because their metals react differently.
Without dual-rated connectors, mixing copper and aluminum builds corrosion, loosens the joint, and causes failure. Foreman, correct. If I find a single joint mixed wrong in your work, you will fail. The tension in the room thickened like smoke. I felt sweat on my neck, but inside something burned brighter. For the first time, I felt like I was not just surviving the lesson. I was mastering it. We practiced until our hands ached. Crimps squeezed under pliers, holding wires tight. Pigtails branched like rivers, relieving stress on terminals. Heat shrink tightened under flame, forming protective skins. Every move felt like a ritual, a spell to keep chaos away. Kevin tried again. He stripped too short this time, leaving not enough copper for the nut to grip. Harris pulled, and the wire slipped out instantly. The class laughed softly. Kevin's face flushed, his pride cracking like brittle glass. Harris too short, and the connector fails. Too long and copper shows. Too loose and heat builds. Too tight and the conductor dies. Remember these 4 laws, apprentices? He turned to me. Harris, tell me, John, After applying a wire nut, what must you always do, John? Tug to test. Harris. Correct. Without the test, you gamble with lives. I nodded, my chest swelling with something more than relief. Pride, maybe, or the first hint of belonging. As the day closed, Harris gave us one last warning. Harris, tomorrow comes the torque of destiny. Tighten until secure, but never crush. Precision, not brute force. Some of you will rise, some will fail. The foreman added his final decree. Foreman, fail tomorrow, and your apprenticeship ends. The workshop fell silent. The only sound was the hum of fluorescent lights and the beating of my heart. I closed my notebook and wrote the sacred rules of aluminum. Aluminum oxidize isolate with compound. Never mix metals without dual-rated connectors. Pigtails protect devices and lugs. Twist firmly, cap correctly, seal completely. Always test, always confirm. As I finished writing, I felt a strange energy. It was more than electricity. It was the fire of transformation. Tomorrow, the torque of destiny would decide who walked forward and who was cast aside.